Before we dive into these deeply disturbing confessions that will shake you to your core, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button right now. These stories are not easy to hear, and your support means everything. Like this video if you're ready to face the darkest corners of human regret. Because what you're about to hear will stay with you long after this video ends. Some confessions are never meant to be spoken aloud. Some regrets are so heavy they crush the soul of the person carrying them. Tonight, I'm sharing stories that came from the depths of Reddit, where anonymity gives people the courage to finally unburden themselves of secrets that have been eating them alive for years. These are not fictional tales. These are real people, real pain, real consequences that can never be undone. And I need to warn you right now, what you're about to hear is disturbing. It's uncomfortable. It involves betrayal, abuse, exploitation, and moral failures that most of us can't even imagine committing. But these stories exist because these things happen in our world, in our communities, maybe even to people we know. So take a breath, prepare yourself, because we're about to enter territory that most people never speak about. Let me start with a confession from a man who destroyed his entire family for something he found in an online game. This isn't some teenage romance. This is a 10-year marriage with 2 children, obliterated because of pixels on a screen and feelings he couldn't control. He starts by saying he cheated on his wife of 10 years, left their 2 children for someone he met online in a massively multiplayer game. And if you think that first sentence is shocking, wait until you hear how it all fell apart. This man served in the US Army. During his service, he busted 2 vertebrae, suffered serious nerve damage. He was discharged, and for 2 years after coming home, he drowned in alcohol and depression. No money, no job, just existing in a fog of self-destruction. Then he met a group of modern hippies, Wiccans, alternative lifestyle people. He started to fit in, started feeling a little less broken. But there was this one woman in the group who absolutely hated him. She told him he was too polite, too nice. She had nothing but nasty things to say to him every single time they crossed paths. Months went by. He hooked up casually with some women in the group, still depressed, still drinking, but slowly climbing out of that nosedive. He got a job, got a place, started rebuilding some semblance of a life. And strangely, he became friends with the woman who hated him. Turns out she was pretty cool, older than him, previously married, had a kid he actually liked. So naturally, they started sleeping together. Not because of feelings, just sex, just physical. Then his workplace closed. No job again, no money, nowhere to go. She asked him to move in. He figured since they were already intimate, why not? He even helped pay off her house with his VA disability money. She was grateful, really grateful. One night he came home and found her crying on the couch. After a long conversation, she confessed something that changed everything. She told him she was in love with him. He had no idea what to say, so he just said it back. "I love you too." 3 years later, they were married, but things had turned dark. Financial stress, on and off jobs in a small town, constant fighting. His wife was saying cruel things to him daily, nasty, cutting remarks that made him feel like she was trying to provoke him into violence. He finally had enough. He made plans to leave her. That's when she told him she was pregnant. His heart sank. He felt trapped. But he did what he thought was the right thing. He stayed. They bought a house. He opened a business. They had a baby boy. He took classes at the local college. He even came to love her son from her previous marriage as his own flesh and blood. For a while, things seemed okay. Then, his wife convinced him to try an online game. She thought it would be good for him, a way to relax, to have some fun. So he tried it, got into role-playing, started having serious fun. And other than his kids, this game became the only thing he had going on in his life. While playing, he got into deep role-playing storylines with another player. They started talking out of character, got to know each other very well. She was married, having similar marriage problems. They had so much in common. They started talking for 3 to 4 hours at a time, even longer on weekends. He started developing feelings for this person, real feelings. Those fluttery, bouncy sensations in his chest. He thought he was having small heart attacks. He had no idea what to do with these emotions. Emotionally, he skyrocketed out of his depression. He started listening to music again, wanting to dance, wanting to go out, hit the bars, play pool. He felt alive. His wife noticed, and she didn't like it. They got into a huge fight. She told him his happiness made her skin crawl, that it creeped her out. For 2 weeks, they fought every single day, the same fight over and over. He was miserable, ready to rip someone's head off. Then, the woman from the game asked him to meet her in real life. He thought about it for maybe 2 seconds. He was drowning in misery at home. He needed an escape. So he drove 3 hours to meet her at her family's ranch house. They had a private meal, talked about everything, walked in the woods. He felt a peace he hadn't experienced in years. All the pressure just slid off his back. He was genuinely happy. Night came. They were inside still talking. There was a futon. They laid down together, cuddled up. And as they say, one thing led to another. The weekend was incredible. He had never felt that way with anyone. Everything was perfect. He didn't even feel guilt about the cheating. Not a shred. Then it was time to go home. His cell phone had been out of service range the entire weekend. As he drove back, text messages started flooding in. Mean, nasty messages from his wife, and at the end of them all, she told him she had sent his stuff to his mother's house. She was kicking him out. All he could muster was a shrug. He realized in that moment he didn't care anymore. The next 2 weeks were chaos. Couch surfing at his mom's house. Not telling anyone about his weekend. His wife kept calling to tear into him. She told him she went out and hooked up with another guy. But at that point, he wasn't even sure he cared anymore. Another huge fight. But this time something was different. He felt nothing, absolutely nothing. Fast forward, he's now living with the woman from the game. They've been together for years. He's happier than he's ever been in his entire life. But his kids, his 2 children, they're growing up without him. He left them behind for this new life, for this new love. And while he sits there playing his online games with the woman who saved him from his depression, his children are learning to live without their father. He says he has no regrets about the decision he made, that he couldn't stand another 24 hours in the life he was living before, that he had to make that 180-degree turn, or he would have destroyed himself. But late at night, when he's alone with his thoughts, does he think about his kids? Does he wonder what they tell their friends when someone asks about their dad? Does he imagine their faces when they realized he chose a woman from the internet over them? He never says, and maybe that's the most disturbing part of all. If you're still watching, leave a comment below telling me what you would have done in his situation. Would you have stayed for the kids? Would you have left for your own happiness? There's no easy answer. And that's what makes this so haunting. Don't forget to hit that like button, because this is only the first story. And trust me, it gets darker from here. Now let me tell you about a mother who has cried every single day for 20 years. A mother who made a decision that destroyed her relationship with her daughter forever. A mother who would give anything, absolutely anything, to go back in time and change one moment. She starts by saying she's never spoken about this to anyone, ever. For the first time in 2 decades, she's facing the life-changing decisions she made when her younger daughter almost died. She knows people can be judgmental toward mothers, but she's desperate to get this out before the guilt consumes her completely. She's just over 40 years old now. She married young, had kids young. She and her husband Matthew didn't believe in abortion, so when she got pregnant, they kept the baby. She had her eldest daughter Molly 11 months after getting married. To make it work, she dropped out of her master's program. Her husband took another job while going to school full-time. Her pregnancy with Molly was extremely difficult. She was far from home, far from her parents. She didn't have many friends. Her husband's family hated her. She developed severe postpartum depression, and then, just 13 months later, she gave birth to her second daughter, Janie. You'd think they would have learned to be more cautious after the first unexpected baby. But there they were, pregnant again. Janie's pregnancy was better, but the birth was terrifying. The umbilical cord was wrapped around her neck. By the time doctors realized it, she was too far into labor for a C-section. Janie came out frail, completely blue, but miraculously, she was healthy. 2 difficult pregnancies so close together had wrecked her body. She was exhausted physically and emotionally. She had no support system. Matthew was always working or in class. He didn't have the capacity to be there for her emotionally. He didn't have time to listen to what she was going through. One evening, about a month after they brought Janie home from the hospital, she was giving Molly a bath. Janie was sleeping in her crib. Matthew was at his desk working. She heard Janie starting to cry. She figured Matthew, who was in the room with the baby, would hold her. But the crying continued for several minutes. She was getting ready to wrap up Molly's bath when she heard something that made her blood run cold. Janie shrieked. Not a normal cry, a shriek of pain. She quickly lifted Molly out of the tub, wrapped her in a towel, and rushed to the living room. Matthew was holding Janie against him. His face was completely pale. The baby had stopped crying. When she asked what happened, Matthew lied. He said everything was fine, but it wasn't fine. Years later, when Janie was around 5 or 6 years old, she started developing problems, behavioral issues, trouble in school. The mother took her to specialist after specialist. They ran tests, brain scans, everything they could think of. And that's when they discovered it. Janie had suffered a traumatic brain injury as an infant. The mother's mind immediately went back to that night. The shriek, Matthew's pale face, his lie. She confronted him. At first, he denied everything, but finally, under the weight of her questioning, he broke down. He admitted that he had shaken Janie that night. She wouldn't stop crying. He was frustrated, exhausted, and he shook her, hard enough to cause permanent brain damage. The mother was devastated, destroyed. She took her daughters and left. She filed for divorce. She was determined to protect her children from this man who had hurt their baby. But then something happened that she regrets more than anything else in her entire life. Matthew's family got involved. They begged her to come back. They told her it was a mistake, that he was sorry, that he would never do it again. They told her the girls needed their father, that growing up without a dad would be worse than growing up with one who made a terrible mistake. And the specialists told her something that sealed her decision. They said Janie would be fine, that children are resilient, that with therapy and support, she would lead a normal life. So she went back. She reunited with Matthew. She told herself she was doing it for her daughters, that having a father, even a flawed one, was better than having no father at all. She convinced herself that he was truly sorry, that he had learned from his mistake, that the shame he carried would prevent him from ever hurting anyone again. But Janie was not fine. As Janie grew up, the effects of the brain injury became more apparent. She struggled in school. She had trouble with social situations. She developed mental health issues that required medication. She was in therapy for years. And through it all, she had no idea why she was different from other kids. No idea that her own father had caused her suffering. When Janie turned 18, the mother made another decision. She told her the truth. She thought Janie deserved to know, that she was old enough to understand, that it might help her make sense of her struggles. Janie's reaction was not what the mother expected. She wasn't angry at Matthew. She was angry at her mother, furious, because her mother had known the truth all along and had chosen to stay with the man who hurt her, had chosen to let him remain in her life, had chosen his presence over her daughter's justice. Janie told her mother she forgave her, but then she tried to speak to Matthew. He couldn't even look her in the eye. Janie called him a coward. And then, shortly after that conversation, she cut them both off completely. Janie was always extremely independent, but she took it to a new level. She found full-time work somewhere. The mother doesn't know where. She changed her cell phone number, sold the car they had given her, and sent them the money she got for it. That gesture broke the mother's heart more than anything. Janie changed banks, took herself off their health insurance, refused to tell them her new address. Janie is still close with her sister Molly. Whenever the mother asks, Molly tells her how Janie is doing. But it's painful for Molly to keep her sister's secrets all these years. The mother knows this situation is tearing Molly apart too. The mother says she doesn't blame Janie for being angry. In fact, she's more angry at herself than Janie is angry at them. For the first time since she was a child, she's gone back to church. She prays every single day that her daughter will call her. Just once, just to hear her voice. These days, she tortures herself by looking through Janie's baby pictures. Years ago, she thought her biggest regret was giving up her master's degree. Now, her biggest regret is failing to protect her baby girl, her lovely, beautiful Janie. She says she reunited with Matthew not for her own benefit, but because she believed it would be better for both daughters. She thought having a father who loved them was better than having no father figure at all. She felt it was a lose-lose situation. If she had left, the girls might have grown up resenting her for not having a dad in their lives. She was told Janie would be fine, and she wanted to believe it. She had no way of knowing her daughter would suffer more later on. She regrets everything, every single day. But the damage is done. Janie is gone, living her life somewhere without her mother, without her father, alone but free from the people who failed to protect her when she needed it most. And the mother sits in her house, surrounded by baby pictures, praying to a God she abandoned years ago, begging for a phone call that will probably never come. Before we continue, I need you to do something for me. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. These stories need to be told, and your support helps me keep bringing them to you. Drop a like on this video if you're still here, still listening, still willing to face these uncomfortable truths about human nature. Now let's talk about a brother who committed unforgivable acts against his own sister. This is a story about drugs, exploitation, and how one person's addiction destroyed multiple lives, including the life of the person he should have protected most. He starts by saying he doesn't care anymore about what people think. He's clean now, has been for over 5 years. But the things he did while he was using, those things haunt him every single day. And the person he hurt most was his own little sister. Back then, all he cared about was cocaine, ecstasy, partying, and a girl named Mary. Mary was into all of it. But there was a problem. They didn't have much money. Mary was essentially just a kid, and he barely made $250 a week at his landscaping job. One day, he had Mary with him while picking up some ecstasy pills. The dealer, stoned out of his mind, told him he'd give them a few extra pills if Mary slept with him. It took a little convincing, but Mary eventually agreed, and that was the first time he ever pimped a girl out. But Mary wasn't the one he regrets most. Mary was already a troubled girl before he met her. He's not saying he didn't make things worse for her, but he's convinced that what happened to Mary wasn't entirely his fault. The ones he regrets most aren't even the friends Mary helped him recruit from her school after she became a full-time prostitute. Most of those girls were already dealing with serious issues, or Mary wouldn't have been able to convince them to work for him. The one he regrets most is his sister. She was a junior in high school the first time she asked him for drugs, just weed. He had plenty of it, but instead of giving his little sister a small amount to try, he convinced her it cost 10 times what it actually did. She paid him $100 for just a couple of joints, money she had saved up from her allowance. Keep in mind, he was high on something practically all the time at this point. He had grown used to seeing young women as nothing more than a means to make cash. He was absolutely without remorse or guilt. His sister was just another potential source of income. Eventually, he brought her to her first rave, paid for everything, including the ecstasy. While she was rolling hard, completely out of her mind on drugs, he told a friend of his to massage her. When she started complaining that the friend was touching her too much, her own brother told her to stop being a baby and just enjoy it. He watched his sister lose her virginity that night to a guy he barely even remembers anymore. That guy paid him $100 for it. It wasn't long before his sister became his constant companion at parties, raves, and clubs. Their parents tried to control her by grounding her, but he convinced her to sneak out all the time. She and his two main girls, including Mary, would go out, get high, and then he would hook them up with clients. He took the majority of the money. They never complained because they were scared of him. They were scared he might hurt them. While coked out, he was known for getting violent, though he barely remembers those incidents now. They were also scared he would abandon them or cut them off. They had seen him do that to other girls, and they didn't want it to happen to them. This went on for nearly 2 years. It ended after his sister was arrested for possession and solicitation. He had gotten the bright idea that his girls should start getting their own clients instead of him setting everything up. He thought it would be more efficient, more profitable. He didn't consider what might happen to them out there alone. His sister was picked up by an undercover cop. When the police found out she was only 17 years old and underage, everything changed. They wanted to know who had been supplying her with drugs, who had been putting her out on the streets. She could have thrown him under the bus, could have told them everything, but she didn't. She took the fall herself. The night she was arrested, he was meeting with his dealer friend to set up a date for Mary. They were supposed to meet the client at a motel, but when they arrived, there were 3 men waiting instead of 1. He remembers arguing with his dealer friend, remembers the friend saying something like, "Don't worry about it. They're just going to have some fun." Then everything went black. He woke up in the hospital days later. He'd been beaten within an inch of his life. They told him he'd suffered a concussion that required them to drill a hole in his skull. Broken ribs, a broken hand that never healed correctly, and of course, withdrawal from all the drugs in his system. When the police spoke with him, he refused to answer any questions at first. Then they asked if he knew that Mary had been assaulted as well. He remembers feeling, and still feels, the shame of realizing he had never even considered what might have happened to her. He had been so focused on his own pain that he hadn't thought about anyone else. Mary had been violently raped while he was unconscious. They beat her terribly too. Being shown pictures of Mary's face, all swollen and bruised, made him cry like a child. He thinks that was the first time he honestly felt guilt about what he'd been doing for years. Not even his sister getting arrested had been enough to make him realize what he had become. He told the police everything about his dealer friend and how he had set up the meeting with Mary that night. But nothing ever came of it. The dealer kept his mouth shut. When they raided his home, they only found a little weed. No money, no guns, no heavy drugs. He got a slap on the wrist. He's been clean for over 5 years now. But Mary, last he heard, is still a heavy user. His sister got clean and is now in college, but she's had a string of abusive boyfriends. He knows that's probably his fault. He was her big brother. He taught her that men only want her for sex, and she's had a hard time unlearning that lesson. The other girls? He barely even remembers them, and he's far too much of a coward to try and track them down to apologize or make amends. He lives with what he did every single day. The guilt eats at him constantly. But being sorry doesn't undo the damage. It doesn't give his sister back her innocence. It doesn't heal Mary's trauma. He destroyed lives for drug money, and now he has to live with that knowledge forever. Comment below if you think people who commit these kinds of acts deserve forgiveness? Can someone who did what he did ever truly be redeemed? These are questions without easy answers. And if you're still watching, I appreciate you being here to wrestle with these difficult moral questions. Make sure you like this video and subscribe for more. Let me tell you now about a young man who lied to a grieving son about his dead mother. This is a story about a moment of compassion that might have been completely misguided. A lie told with good intentions that could explode at any moment. He's a young man who volunteers at his church. One of his duties is attending funerals for members who pass away without family or friends to mourn them. He sits in the service, pays his respects, makes sure that person isn't forgotten, even if they lived their final years in complete isolation. This particular day, he arrived at a funeral service for an elderly woman who had died in a nursing home. As expected, the church was nearly empty. Just him, the pastor, and a few other volunteers fulfilling the same duty. The pastor gave a standard service, kind words about a life lived, generic enough to apply to anyone because, truthfully, none of them knew this woman. Then, about halfway through the service, a young man in military uniform walked in. He was clearly the woman's son. He sat down quietly in the back, and the pastor acknowledged him with a nod, but continued the service without making any changes. When the service ended, the son stood up at the podium. He was visibly emotional. He apologized for being late, explained that the nursing home had struggled to reach him because he hadn't updated his contact information after getting out of military service. He'd been in Canada for work when they finally tracked him down to deliver the news. He then began to speak about his mother. But here's where it got strange. He was saying things like, "As most of you probably know, my mother was an avid reader, and as she may have mentioned, our family dynamic was never the same after my father died." He was talking as if everyone in that room had known his mother personally, as if they were all her friends. The volunteer sitting there came to an uncomfortable realization. This son thought everyone in attendance had been close to his mother. He had no idea they were just volunteers fulfilling a duty for a stranger. The son sat down and whispered to the pastor, asking how many other speakers there were. The pastor was faced with an impossible task. He had to somehow reveal that this woman had died without any friends, without anyone who truly knew her. He started to search for the right words when the son cut him off, apologizing again for being late and saying he'd really like to talk to the pastor more after the service. They said the closing prayer. And then one of the women, not realizing the conversation that had just taken place, announced that everyone should head to the main lobby for light refreshments. The volunteers knew what was about to happen. They had to get out before the son realized the truth. Nobody wanted to be the one who had to explicitly state they were just there out of duty or pity, so they lined up quickly, offered brief condolences to the son, and then rushed out without even stopping for a cookie. The son tried to stop people as they were leaving, tried to ask them questions about his mother, but they were too quick. They escaped before having to lie or tell him the painful truth. The young volunteer couldn't bear it. He couldn't leave this grieving soldier standing there alone, about to realize his mother had died completely isolated and friendless. So he did something he still regrets to this day. He walked over to the son and lied. He told the son he was sorry, that his mother's loss had hit him very hard, that he wasn't sure the son would be able to make it to the service. As the words were leaving his mouth, his head was screaming at him to shut up and walk away. But the son's face lit up with desperate gratitude. The son asked if they could sit down for a minute, said he had a lot of questions. The volunteer quickly qualified that he and the mother weren't terribly close, but the son said it didn't matter. He was just glad his mother had some people in her life. Then the son launched into his whole life story. He explained that he was adopted, that his adoptive mother had a biological son who was killed in war, that the loss took a hard toll on both his mother and his adoptive father, that the father died of a heart attack just a couple years later. There was family blame involved. His mother had blamed the father for encouraging the biological son to enlist. Then there was a massive falling out when the adopted son also decided to enlist in honor of his brother. He said he felt horrible for not trying harder to mend fences with his mother before she died. The volunteer couldn't stand watching this man torture himself, so he doubled down on the lie. He told the son that his mother loved him, that she missed him, that she felt, after everything they'd been through together, she wanted to give him space to live his own life, that she never went into much detail about what happened after the father passed. But hearing the full explanation made it all make sense now. The son was so emotional. He asked desperately, "Really? She missed me? She talked about me?" The volunteer said of course she did, that she was so proud of him, that she told everyone who would listen that her son was out protecting the country and was an officer, but that it was hard on her too. That every time there was news of a soldier's death, she would stop whatever she was doing and be glued to the television, praying it wasn't him. The son was openly sobbing at this point. He asked general questions about what his mother was like in her final years, what she did during the day. The volunteer stuck to vague but memorable details, said she played board games, watched the news. When the son asked if she was still conservative, the volunteer said she was still deciding what to think, since the Republican Party had changed so much since her youth. He made up favorite foods, favorite songs, said she loved certain pop music until she saw how provocatively the artist dressed, said she loved the therapy dogs that visited the nursing home, just generic details that could apply to any elderly woman, but were specific enough to feel real. At the end of the conversation, the son thanked him profusely. They talked about what to do with the body. The son mentioned he was thinking of cremation so he could keep an urn and talk to her without having to drive to a cemetery. The volunteer said he thought that's definitely what she would have wanted. The son asked if his mother had a favorite flower. The volunteer remembered that the funeral had displayed purple roses and baby's breath. He said she loved baby's breath. The son said he'd always keep a vase of them by the urn. Before leaving, the volunteer told the son, "You should know she didn't blame you, so don't blame yourself." He figured if there were other things the son wasn't saying, other regrets, he could look back and assume this statement applied to whatever was bothering him. Then the son left to make arrangements for the body. That's when the pastor turned to the volunteer with a concerned expression. "What were you thinking?" he asked. "What happens if this man meets someone who actually knew his mother and realizes you made all of that up? What if he finds out she didn't really love him or support him or even talk about him? He'll be crushed." The volunteer felt terrible. like he had just sent a ticking time bomb out into the world. He was racked with guilt and needed to confess somewhere, which is why he shared it on Reddit. Looking back, he admits it was reckless, but in that moment, it felt impossible to just walk away. This man was so raw and desperate for something to hold on to. And while the volunteer knows he crossed a line, he says if he were faced with the same situation again, he honestly doesn't think he would do anything differently. Was it wrong to lie? Absolutely. Will it potentially cause more pain if the son discovers the truth? Possibly. But in that moment, the volunteer gave a grieving soldier peace. He gave him closure. He gave him a version of his mother that allowed him to let go of guilt and shame. Sometimes the truth is cruel, and sometimes a lie, even a potentially dangerous one, is the most compassionate option available. What would you have done? Comment below. And if you think this story raises interesting moral questions, smash that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear these stories. Now for the final confession of the night. This one involves a work trip that took a turn into absolutely disturbing territory. This is about inappropriate behavior, obsession, and how sometimes the people we work with are hiding secrets that would terrify us if we knew the full truth. The storyteller is young. This was their first real professional job. They went on a work trip with two older colleagues, a man and a woman, both married with families. After the workday ended, the two colleagues invited the young employee to hang out in one of their hotel rooms. Nothing too crazy, just a couple beers and maybe a movie together. At first, everything was completely normal. They sat around, drank a little, talked about random stuff, kids, work, funny stories. The young employee was even starting to think having work friends who were older and more experienced was really cool. They saw life differently. They had wisdom to share. But then things started to get strange. Out of nowhere, the female coworker turned her attention to the male coworker and started hitting on him, blatantly, telling him he should take off his shirt, asking him weird personal questions, crossing lines that felt wildly inappropriate, especially considering he was happily married. And so was she. The color drained from the male coworker's face. You could tell he was deeply uncomfortable, but he tried to laugh it off at first. Eventually, it became too much, and he excused himself, saying he was heading to bed. Now, the young employee should have left too, should have recognized the red flags and gotten out of there. But remember, this was their very first real job. These people were older, and the employee honestly thought maybe this was just some awkward adult flirting dynamic they didn't understand. So they stayed. When it was just the two of them, the female coworker shifted gears entirely. Now, she was showing pictures of her kids, talking about her family, which, on its own, seemed normal enough. But after what had just happened, it felt bizarre. Then, she randomly pulled out her phone and went to Instagram. She pulled up the page of a male model, not super famous, just one of those wannabe influencer types with maybe a couple thousand followers. The guy was objectively attractive, but nothing about his page screamed celebrity. That's when she leaned in with wide, unblinking eyes and told the young employee that she was having an affair with this man, that he was in love with her, that she was divorcing her husband any day now so she could run off with this guy. She spoke about it so matter-of-factly, like it was a done deal. The young employee's brain short-circuited. They didn't know what to say, so they just nodded along while internally screaming, "What the hell is happening right now?" Things only got worse from there. The woman navigated away from Instagram. Now, she was in her camera roll, scrolling through photos of this male model. But these weren't like the ones on his Instagram. These were pictures she had clearly taken without this man knowing. Candid shots taken from a distance, photos of him at what looked like a grocery store, walking down a street, sitting at a coffee shop. Photos that could only have been taken by someone following him, someone stalking him. The woman scrolled through dozens of these images, talking about him like they were in a relationship, analyzing his body language in the photos, wondering what he was thinking when each picture was taken, creating an entire narrative in her head about their connection. The young employee realized with growing horror that this woman had likely never even spoken to this man in person, that this entire affair existed only in her mind, that she was obsessed with a stranger and had convinced herself it was a mutual romance. But the employee said nothing, did nothing, just sat there nodding while this woman showed picture after picture of a man she was stalking. Because what do you say in that situation? How do you tell your coworker, someone with power over your career, that they're delusional and potentially dangerous? Eventually, the woman said she was tired, and the employee was able to escape back to their own room. They lay awake all night thinking about what they'd witnessed, wondering if they should tell someone, wondering if that male model was in danger, wondering if the woman's husband knew what was happening in her mind. But they never said anything. They went back to work, acted like nothing had happened, and to this day, they carry the guilt of knowing they witnessed something deeply disturbing and did absolutely nothing about it. That woman is still married, still working at the same company, and somewhere out there, a male model has no idea that a married woman with children has an entire photo gallery of him on her phone, that she's built an elaborate fantasy in her mind where they're in love, that she's told people they're having an affair. The employee wonders sometimes if they should have spoken up, if their silence makes them complicit, if that model deserves to know he's being followed and photographed without his knowledge. But they also know that speaking up could have destroyed their career, could have made them the target of this woman's obsession, could have created problems they weren't equipped to handle. So they stay silent, just like so many people stay silent when they witness behavior that makes them uncomfortable. Because speaking up is risky. Because getting involved is complicated. Because sometimes it's easier to pretend you didn't see what you saw and move on with your life. But that doesn't make the guilt go away. It doesn't erase the memory of those wide, unblinking eyes. It doesn't change the fact that somewhere out there, someone is being stalked, and the people who know about it are too scared or too selfish to do anything. And that might be the most disturbing confession of all. Not the stalking itself, but the fact that someone witnessed it and chose to do nothing. Chose their own comfort over someone else's safety. Chose silence over action. We're reaching the end of this compilation, and I want to thank you for sticking with me through these deeply uncomfortable stories. If you've made it this far, you're stronger than most. These confessions aren't easy to hear. They force us to confront the darkest aspects of human nature, the choices we make when nobody's watching, the regrets that haunt us for the rest of our lives. Before we wrap up, I need you to do 3 things for me. First, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Hit that bell icon so you never miss when I post new content. Second, give this video a like. It helps more people find these stories. And third, leave a comment telling me which confession affected you most and why. These stories exist because real people made real choices that had devastating consequences. The soldier who abandoned his children for an online romance. The mother who failed to protect her daughter from abuse and then watched that daughter cut her out of her life completely. The brother who exploited his own sister for drug money and destroyed her innocence forever. The volunteer who lied to a grieving son and gave him false closure. The young employee who witnessed stalking behavior and said nothing. Every single one of these people carries regret that will follow them to their graves. Every single one of them would give anything to go back and make different choices. But that's not how life works. We don't get do-overs. We don't get to erase our mistakes. We have to live with them, carry them, let them shape who we become. The question is, what do we do with that regret? Do we let it destroy us? Or do we use it to become better people? Do we share our stories to warn others? Or do we bury them deep and pretend they never happened? These confessions exist because someone chose to share. Someone decided that carrying the secret alone was worse than facing judgment from strangers on the internet. Someone decided that maybe, just maybe, their story could help someone else make a better choice. So if you're carrying a secret, if you're drowning in regret, if you made a choice that haunts you every single day, know that you're not alone. These stories prove that human beings are capable of terrible things. But they also prove that we're capable of honesty, of facing our failures, of admitting when we were wrong. That doesn't absolve us of responsibility. It doesn't undo the harm we caused. But it's a start. It's a first step toward becoming someone different, someone better. And maybe that's the only redemption any of us can hope for. Not forgiveness from the people we hurt. Not absolution from a higher power. Just the knowledge that we faced what we did, owned it, and chose to be different going forward. Thank you for watching this compilation of unexplainable confessions that people deeply regret. If you found value in these stories, if they made you think or feel, or question your own choices, then please share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more content like this. And remember that every day is a chance to make better choices than we made yesterday. The people in these stories can't go back, but you can move forward. You can choose differently. You can be better. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. I'll see you in the next video.